episode, a preview of your undefeated 2023 Green Bay Packers traveling down to the fast track of hot Atlanta to also play the undefeated Atlanta Falcons. We're here to preview, break down the game. And Dave, let's go ahead and get this show on the road and hope that David Bakhtiari doesn't light up the AstroTurf before after the game down in Atlanta.
Yeah, there was lots to be said about grass versus turf today. Although I like Atlanta's track, and Packers historically have liked their track too. So I have no problem with the dome down there.
Do you want to spend the next 20 minutes making a grass versus artificial turf debate for this episode? Dog ourselves blue in the face. I bet if David Bakhtiari came on the show, he could do it. List all the pros and all the cons.
I'm sure he could. This team is actually probably more built for that type of surface anyway. I mean, if you have a speed team, you're only going to get faster on artificial stuff. So Watson comes back. Hopefully Watson comes back. Jones comes back. Seems like Jones and Quay took a nice step in the right direction in terms of possibly progressing enough to give it a go on Sunday, but that's obviously being monitored. And other than that, last week was a good stepping stone. This week is going to be another good test. Falcons defense likes to mix it up. They're also a young team. Robinson is a speedster, and Riddler, the quarterback, has actually been improving each game he plays. You could see the passer rating go up with each start he gets. So it's kind of a battle of two young and inexperienced teams.
It is. We talked about it back in May. We'll leave the predictions towards the end of the show, but so like one of the first things that you see him on paper that hey, it's another young quarterback, and Desmond Ridder, he has yet to throw an interception. I'd like to think that streak comes to an end on Sunday, but Dave, I want to say the Packers are practicing as we speak right now, and that'll tell us a pretty good indicator whether Watson is a go, whether Jones is a go. I feel pretty good about Quay playing on Sunday, but those two, hopefully they're out there, out once they leave the Don Hudson Center and onto the field for individuals and team drills. Because that's a difference maker.
I think Jones will be limited in snaps, but he'll be able to go. I think Quay's going to go, and the one I'm unsure about is Watson. I think you're going to give Watson another week. I'm just iffy about him.
Yeah. What do you want to start with, Dave, today? Offense or defense to give the keys? Who do we think has the advantage? And
it's the same key as last week. It's going to be our top defensive line versus a very weak offensive line of the Falcons. The Panthers' defensive line was bulldozing them, like from the clips and the highlights I saw of that game. So we should be able to get after them again. And young quarterback, you're hoping you pressure him enough, he's going to throw a couple into your lap.
Yeah, and starting with our defensive line, I think the whole key of the game is if we limit their ground game on offense, then it's a wrap. We don't turn the ball over. If we limit Tyler Algier, who had 1,000 yards last year, is kind of a new name to us, probably a new name to a lot of Packer fans out there. He had a number of big runs against the Panthers in week 1, and then their top 8 overall draft pick in Bijan Robinson. If we can corral those two, and I think back to the game last year against Minnesota and playing Dalvin Cook, where he usually puts up big numbers, it's like Joe Barry needs to commit to playing 3 down defensive linemen throughout the game and force Desmond Ridder to beat you, which I don't think he's really capable of, only throwing for 150 yards. But I think it all starts up front. We saw how good of a game that Devontae Wyatt had against the Bears, primarily on the pass rush side of it. So he's proved that side of his game. Yep. Now it's can he round it out, and how's he going to look being a true run stuffer alongside TJ Slayton, who had 40 snaps last week, and Kenny. So it's those big boys up front eating up blocks, and then Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker getting off blocks and limiting those big runs early on first and second down.
Yeah, you took the name right out of me. I was going to say TJ Slaton's going to have a big game this upcoming week. This seems like this type of game for him. And it's going to be another test of, can we rally to the football 2 weeks in a row and show good tackling ability and don't let the missed tackle 4 yards down the field turn into a 35-yard gain. So it's going to be a big keep Robinson in a phone booth type game.
Do you think it's like last week versus the Bears, where when you see Darnell Savage making tackles for losses, Keyshawn Nixon, Rasul Douglas getting nasty with it? If they do that early on in the game, it's like that's sort of that galvanizing moment for the rest of the defense. Yeah. They're like, shit, if our cornerbacks and safeties are going to play this physical, then we got to bring it ourselves. But I think, hey, if they come out hot like they did against the Bears and we're seeing willing tacklers out of our secondary, then it's a pretty good sign that we should be in a good spot. And on third down, and I remember when you brought it up, we were texting for the Bears game, and you're like, shit, if it wasn't Justin, that'll be my last curse word for the day, but if it wasn't Justin Fields, like we'd have 8 to 10 sacks. The Panthers had 3.5 sacks against the Falcons. Brian Burns, who he's on a similar playing field, I want to say, as Rashawn Gary. I think Rashawn Gary has a slight edge of him, but he had 1.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles. If we can get them in some third and mediums to third and longs, like let our dogs get after it. Unleash them, pin their ears back. Rashawn Gary, he's got to have more snaps, you think, in week 2. And he had, 12 snaps and 4 pressures against the Bears. Like, I could see him licking his chops and having a 2-sack performance potentially.
I think Gary is still going to be pretty week-to-week basis, slowly ramping up the snaps until probably middle of October. I think it's just get him on in those crucial situations, let him go after it, and then throttle him down, because he's been a limited participant all week, and I get he's on a rest and recovery program, so I just don't see him coming out and doing 10 snaps last week and dialing it up to 35 this week.
Yeah. So you don't think at 20 snaps, maybe they double the snaps, get him up to 20, and in 20 snaps he could get 2 sacks? It's possible.
I still see him in the teens. I see him anywhere between 12 and 18 snaps.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be a. But I mean,
it's a pass rush. It's a pass rush committee, because we had Lucas Finesse getting his first sack.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have Inabari. You're going to have plenty of guys that are going to be able to get after it, and they might be more cautious that it's on turf with Gary.
Yeah, that too. All things. I mean, hey, if we're deep at that position, there's no need to bring him back and ask for 30 snaps. Even though people fans like me, we just want to let Gary loose and wreak his havoc like we know we can. But let's be precautious with it. Dave, do you see Desmond Ridder's streak as an NFL quarterback coming to an end on Sunday and delivering up his first career interception? And if so, who's coming down with it?
You'd think it should. I mean, he threw a couple right into the hands of Panthers defenders that just got dropped last week. Who do I think comes down with a pick? I'm going to go with Sewell. Sewell will get the interception.
Yeah, we were both off last week. None of us thought Quay was going to be the first player to get an interception and a pick 6 this year. Yeah, Rasul Douglas, I'd hopefully just like last week. I mean, that's all we have to compare it to is the barometer. But Jair is going to shadow Drake London, also a former top 10 overall pick in the draft. Let him do his thing. Not a ton of targets coming his way. And then probably the biggest question mark that we need to have an answer to for this game, Dave, is stop the run game. And then this is a big bugaboo for the Packers, and I'm still haunted by what Mark Andrews from the Ravens did to us a couple years back. What are we doing with Kyle Pitts, who's not a true tight end? He's basically a big wide receiver playing out of the slots. How are we matching up with him and limiting him not to have 150 yards receiving?
It's going to be a big game for Darnell Savage, right? And then probably Campbell or Quay most likely you're going to have that over-under coverage of a linebacker shadowing him and then a safety over the top. It's funny, too, because Savage did an interview, and someone asked him, like, how did it feel to have his, such a great game, and Savage didn't think he played a really good game because he wasn't around the ball at all in terms of, like, getting his hands on the ball, and people were kind of blown away by his response because it's like, dude, you played your best game in probably 18 months. What are you talking about? You had a bad game because you didn't break up a pass or, like, pick the ball off. So I think his perception, because I think in college he was such a dynamic ball hawk that I think his perception of what constitutes a good game in terms of what the Packers expect from him and what he expects from himself are just wildly different. As long as he keeps things in front of him, there's no blown coverages, and he's making a sure tackle. That's all we need from that safety position right now.
Darnell Savage, we're comfortable with you not getting your hands on a ton of balls, a ton of PBUs. You played like you did against the Bears. I think his best position on the field is his slot up near the line of scrimmage, not 20 or 30 yards back to take potentially bad angles. But, yeah, I could see him being matched up against Kyle Pitts a bunch, and then Keyshawn Nixon's going to have his fair share of snaps against him too. But with our pass rush, I don't see Desmond Ridder having a ton of time back there to even have these plays develop down the field.
I would like it if they've shuffled like Jair inside a little bit more, and then you put Valentine on the outside and just kind of mix and match stuff like that. I think that could be a really fun thing that they could start going to, because I don't know if Keyshawn's the answer at slot. I mean, it's 1 week. We're going to kind of give it a go. If he's getting matched up with Andrews, if they put Andrews on the slot or whatever, I could see it causing some issues.
Yeah, I mean, both of us, I'd like to think, agree that it's inevitable until Valentine gets more snaps and is slowly worked into the game plan each week. He's too talented to keep off the field, and could be by like the second half of the year that, he's playing a bunch at outside corner, and then Stokes is that odd man out. But we'll wait till it gets there. Anything else left to make a note of on defense that we need to be cluing for, or where the advantage lies? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward for what we need to do on defense, but offense is a different story with the variables of Jones sitting out or limited snaps. Watson too, you're down your best running back, your best wide receiver. It's time to step up. LaFleur, dip into your bag. Don't be too cute. And if you can, try to channel whatever sort of play calling you had against the 7-0 Arizona Cardinals 2 seasons ago, where everybody thought that we didn't stand a chance against them. I think we were like 2 touchdown underdogs going into that game. But, I mean, how do you see it shaking out on offense with AJ Dillon looking to redeem himself after a poor performance last week? And it wasn't just him. That's offensive lineman blocking too.
Yeah. Offensive line had a tough time in the run game last week. Hopefully they kind of can get things a little bit more corrected this week. I have 2 names. I think you either need to see Heath or Wick step up into that Watson slot. That's just the kind of one name I was going to throw out. Either or. You need someone besides Reed and like Dobbs to take pressure off. I mean, last week it was mainly Jones and then Dobbs. I mean, Reed had some good conversion stuff, but you need someone else to fill that role, which Wax and Heath were just bodies out there. They didn't get any looks, really. They got 1 pass each to each other, and both of them were incomplete. You need someone to fill that outside boundary receiver spot that's going to actually cause a little bit of fear, a little bit of production. That was sorely missed last week. The other name, which I think overtakes your boy Dillon, is I think Wilson ends up getting more carries this week than Dillon. I think Wilson all of a sudden busts a long one, and away we go. I could very much see this being a Starks situation. Guy comes in, all of a sudden starts hammering away, breaks a couple of tackles, some gritty runs. All of a sudden it's like, who is this guy? doing some 15-yard, 18-yard, 20-yard runs, and it's like, let's just keep giving it to him.
Emanuel Wilson, his first NFL game. Dave calling it here first. I haven't seen a ton of news about him this week or other people talking him up, but he has to be the man called up. And if Patrick Taylor was called up the first game, they've only got, a number of other games that they can pull him up. And he's not going to be the complement to AJ Dillon, I wouldn't think. So this is the Emanuel Wilson coming out party. You heard it here first from Dave. And are you giving up on your boy Torrey? You didn't mention him playing outside. Or you see him being primarily now the inside guy, or just that Wicks and Heath bring more to the table than what Torrey can play in that Y?
Yeah, I think LaFleur likes the body type of a Wicks or a Heath on the outside. So I think you're going to see Torrey keep rotating in for Reed in that slot position. Possibly Reed moves outside for a couple of plays, mix and match that way. But it seems like that's the rotation that LaFleur likes, that they have certain packages for Torrey, they have certain packages for Reed, and they're swapping in and out of that slot position. I like Torrey a ton. I just don't see him playing much outside.
Yeah, it reminds me of with Heath, because that's my boy. That's Carl Brooks is yours. Malik Heath is mine. And you root for him. You're kind of biased in a way. But like last week, his snap count was similar to Wicks. Not a ton of targets. I'm like, for everything that he's done in training camp and preseason games, I thought the ball was going to be coming his way at least 5 or 6 times. But it sort of gave me flashbacks to like Alan Lazard or Jake Kumara or Geronimo Allison early on, that like you can tell that they have the potential. You just got to give them an opportunity to do just that. And I think it's going to take maybe a couple games before we realize they're like, all right, well, Malik Heath is ready for the big moment, even if LaFleur does trust Wicks a lot more early on.
Wicks led the receiver group in snaps.
Yeah, 29.
So that's showing that they very much like what they see in them, but the ball just wasn't going to him.
Yep, I think it's a lot that LaFleur trusts him not to make a mistake. He may know the playbook a little bit better than Heath does at this time, but I think Heath just brings a lot more in playmaking ability. The way I see it unfolding, though, on this Sunday is Jaden Reed's going to have a lot more snaps outside at receiver, and then they're going to put Torrey in the slot or have Musgrave lined up there as like a Kyle Pitts in the slot. Yeah. Because of there was 2 contested catches that Reed didn't come down with last Sunday.
And that's usually his bread and butter, too.
Yeah, he's a 50-50 type player. And if he didn't haul those ones in, I think that next one he's going to.
I'll say the one that was on the right sideline where he got his helmet knocked off is a really tough catch. Like, I'm not putting that on him. But Atlanta's defense runs a little bit more exotic stuff than the Bears. They like to disguise stuff more and bring unique pressures or unique coverages. So Love's been really good at diagnosing stuff, and that needs to still be sharp this week, especially because they'll show one thing and they'll back out into something completely different. So the accuracy and the continuation of him making the right decision is going to be paramount in the passing game.
And it's an added focus of, which I was surprised it didn't happen against the Bears, of, hey, find these short intermediate routes for Luke Musgrave and check it down to him, get rid of the ball in a hurry. The Bears had practically like no blitzes, only their front 4 pressure. I think it's going to look a lot more like preseason games and find ways to get Luke Musgrave involved early. And then there was a play I heard. I watched the full condensed game of Panthers Falcons. Mm-hmm. I didn't see the wheel route for a Panthers tight end going up the seam wide open, but they missed him. Supposedly there was, but their tight end and Hayden Hurts had 4 catches for 50 yards against the Falcons. So I think that's one area for us to exploit on Sunday, and that we have an advantage of with this young, really fast tight end that should be even more blazing speed down in Atlanta.
LaFleur showed a lot of unique formations week 1, so I hope he pulls out more of those. I want some more 3 tight end sets. I want the fullback in with the 2 running backs. I'm hoping that Kraft gets involved more this week. I know he was kind of swapping out with Sims a lot the week before. But I feel like you run 2 tight end sets with Musgrave and Kraft, and you can have Kraft come on and be your safety blanket, and you can have Musgrave go up the seam or something like that. That kind of seems like what each of their games are. It's going to take a while for this offense to kind of feel like it's established and what to expect week to week with them, because there's so many new faces, and you're going to see guys that it's loves hitting on 10 to 12 receivers a week now. The days of 3 guys in the stat sheet having a reception are long gone. This is going to be a committee.
Like the Brett Favre days when he would spread the wealth around, they'd always show stats of, hey, through one quarter, Brett is targeted and had receptions by 6 different players so far. Brett's just throwing to the open man.
By all means, please do that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that AJ Dillon does redeem himself in this game. He has 2 touchdowns on the ground, 80 yards rushing, and they're going to get back to having him run north and south, hit the A gap. None of this pitch outside or these long stretch plays. Just get him going straight up and down in the middle. And there's some holes to be had that I think Elton and Josh and JRJ can carve out.
What's your prediction in this one? I think we're heading in as like 1-point underdogs or something like that.
Yeah, it switched. It switched some part during this week. We came in as the favorite, and then with the Jones-Watson injuries still in question, Dave, back in May when the schedule released, which we need to we'll stay up to date with this and see how we're tracking as the season goes on. But both of us predicted a win and having a 2-0 start for this one. So far we're good. I'm going to stay with a win as long as we shut down their ground game or keep it under wraps, which I think we will. We got this in the bag. I am going win for the Packers, 28-24.
Ooh, okay. I'm going win. Obviously, I had it in the preview. I still see this as a win. I could see us laying like the thump down. I was kind of going back and forth of I was a little bit cautious with my prediction with the Bears, I think. I could see it turning into like a 31-17 game. Just, get a couple of turnovers, rattle them, fast track. I could see things going a lot of the Packers' way and kind of creating some noise this week.
It's almost like the defense that we had on paper last year is finally materializing this year. And you see them sticking it to Desmond Ridder and our offense getting put in some nice short yardage situations for us to cash in on. Reed and Musgrave building off of their week 1 performance. And you do have to, so you got Jair. I have to at least mention this because we kind of forgot about it, but Jair is going to be shadowing Drake London. Well, the Falcons also have a dude in AJ Terrell, their quarterback, who's an all-pro. I see him as shadowing Romeo Dobbs for the most part and erasing him to at least some extent. So the ball does have to go elsewhere. But you're going 31-17, Packers W on Sunday for a 2-0 start.
Back-to-back 30 burgers, man.
Hell yeah. I'm all for it. I can see it happening. It's just with some of our biggest weapons being down on offense, like how do we get to that number? And it sounds like it's going to be through the path of defense. It's Keisha.
I think that's what it is. I think you're going to get quite a bit of short fields or maybe a return here and there. Maybe you have kind of an unknown guy step up and have like one of those games where it's like, how the hell did this guy get 155 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns type game or whatever it is. There's
Keyshawn Nixon.
The Falcons are going to have to cover a lot of dudes. They're just going to have to cover a lot of dudes that there's not much tape on, and sometimes that works to your benefit.
Keyshawn Nixon, house call.
All for everything. Keyshawn Nixon, house call. Reed on a punt return, house call. Like whatever it gets. We're getting 31 on this game now.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's ride it home and head into the Packers home opener up 2 spot, and then think about what the headlines will be of Jordan Love if we do go up or do start off with being 2-0, Vikings are 0-2, like you brought up early this morning. Like the hype train of Jordan Love and the jersey sales are already through the roof as we speak. But they're gonna be saying that we got the next best one here in Green Bay to follow the shoes of 12.
That's one thing that real kind of quick before we wrap this up. Jordan Love can supplement the run game a little bit. He could, if Aaron Jones is missing, there could be pass plays called that he, not like the option play, but he could step up into the pocket, pick up a couple of third downs with his legs. Maybe they do like a rollout type deal in the red zone. He could score a touchdown with his legs. He's not a statue back there. He can extend stuff. He can get us 5 or 6 hard yards, running. He's not a Lamar Jackson, but all you need is if you need 8 yards on a 3rd and 7, he could get you that.
100%. You didn't see it a ton against the Bears, but fast track lends itself to, hey, there's some 3rd and shorts. Nobody's there. Get it with your legs, Love.
Yep. All right, Jordan. Well, we're going to talk again, hopefully on Sunday after a win.
I love it. Well, Dave, enjoy the rest of your Friday. The new whip, as I just put it. And, we'll be back on Sunday.
We'll do, man. Have a good weekend.
Cheers, all.